one European leader has penned an open editorial to a regional news site outlining the need for Caribbean countries to fall in line with regulations set out by global organizations. But the commentary has struck a nerve within the financial services industry, and Cayman Islands Stock Exchange Chairman Anthony Travers is going to join me now to discuss this commentary. Good evening, Mr. Travers. Thank you for being here with us.
Good evening, Tammi.
I have the article right here. You are not happy about it, and quite frankly, I can see why. But in your own words, what has upset you about this editorial?
Well, I think you have to translate it from the European into an English we'd understand. But bear in mind, this is Mr. Pierre Moscovici. He's the European Union Tax Commissioner.
Correct.
He's a communist. He's not any old sort of communist. He's actually a Trotskyite.
Is that so? Are you saying that with fact he considers himself a communist?
He considers himself a Trotskyite. Okay. He's a member of the Revolutionary Communist League, no less. Right. He's written many books on the left in France. He finds himself as a European Tax Commissioner extraordinarily in one sense, although perhaps not in another, because the political structure of the European Union is almost identical to the Russian Politburo. It's staffed by non-accountable, non-elected politicians, of whom he is one.
But what's the issue with this article in particular?
Well, what he says to us, and let me just read a couple of sentences, and then I'll apply the Eurospeak translator and tell you what he actually means. The EU fully understands the specific vulnerabilities of small island developing states and coastal states of the Caribbean. We understand their need to find new sources of growth. As the biggest donor in the region, the EU provides millions of euros to address the challenges the Caribbean region faces. In recognition of the administrative capacity constraints that many Caribbean countries face, the EU has put in place technical support to assist these administrations to make the necessary legal and technical adjustments to their financial regimes.
Now, we know that this is subtle speak for what exactly, because I know I'm feeling a little guffed up about this.
You're a little upset.
A little bit.
Well, you really ought to be. What he's actually saying, if you translate that, is you Caribbean countries can go back to fishing, which is what you're good at. There is a war going on for your financial services, and we're going to win it. And when we've won it, what we're going to do, because we're good at this, is provide you a few checks or handouts so that your population can live, assuming they can't live from fishing. That's what he actually means.
How do you get there, though? Because I'll tell you what part, and I raised an eyebrow when I read the specific vulnerabilities of the small island developing states and coastal states of the Caribbean. I read that, and as a West Indian myself, I take a little bit of umbrage. But how do you get from there to, go back to what you used to do?
Well, I think that question actually encapsulates the entire problem. You, as a Caribbean person, are simply too nice. You have no understanding of the hostility that has racked Europe for 2,000 years, from the Moguls to the Magyars to the Moors to the Greeks, to the Nazis to the communists. You've probably forgotten that in Russia alone in the Second World War, 20 million civilians died. The Europeans have absolutely no difficulty whatsoever if they find an island state with 25,000 people in it in crushing them under their jackboots as if they don't exist. This is the European mentality, and you have to understand it. Bear in mind, specifically answer your question, the European Union, through the OECD in 1998, came out with a report called Harmful Tax Competition. These people are calling us harmful.
So they're almost speaking out of both sides of their mouth. In one aspect, we're harmful, but then we're also, small island nations that should just go back to,
well,
doing what we used
we're
to
not
do.
harmful providing we're not competing with them for financial services. Bear in mind, our total financial services industry is in the region of around $5 trillion, which compares very favorably with the European total investment of around $13 trillion in European structures. So to us, to them, I should say, they see us as a major threat. At no time in the past 20 years since that harmful tax competition report have the EU, notwithstanding the concessions we've made, notwithstanding the appeasement, notwithstanding the tax information exchange agreements, notwithstanding the common reporting standard and the transparency admitted, ever result from the position that we're harmful to them. So when a European says you're harmful, you need to be concerned.
But you're not surprised, though, are you, by the approach that has been taken here? I mean, we've seen this crop up every so often over the years, over the decades.
Nothing about this has surprised me. It's precisely what I said would happen. I've written extensively about these proposals. I think it should surprise some people in government. The latent hostility, the thinly veiled hostility remains. And we have a situation now where their legislation is rendering us extremely uncompetitive.
What should we do now then?
Well, I think there are only two things that you can do in this situation. Now, if you're in a war, you either continue with the path of appeasement and hope that the EU self-destructs.
Well, that hasn't worked to date, has it?
It hasn't worked to date. On the other hand, what you do is denigrate their blacklists, render them derisory, find your friends, visit your friends, and try and establish a credible alternative.
All right, Mr. Travers, thank you for being here with us, for giving us your take on this article, this editorial that has come out very recently from the EU. Appreciate it very much. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.